Okay.
All right, and then I'm just going to do a quick intro, and then you guys can jump in.
Sure.
Hello, 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 hello. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the Katra Film Series Alumni Spotlight. I'm Jason Godby, and joining me is the Executive Director of Katra Film Series, Joffrey Guerrero, and our distinguished guest, Mr. John Campbell, the writer and producer of the feature documentary, The Infamous Future.
Hey.
Welcome, guys.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Thank you.
It's nice to see you guys again.
Good to see you too. It's been a while. I think it's been close to a year since I've seen you, Jason.
It feels like it. It feels like it's been forever.
Yes.
But we got a lot to talk about and not a lot of time to do it. So let's get into it. So first of all, how are you guys dealing? New York City, we're just in like phase two of the COVID pandemic. So are you still producing stuff, or like how's it going for everybody?
John, I'll let you go.
Okay. So for me, it's still been very busy. I kind of took advantage of the time, knowing that it would slow some things down, so I could speed some things up, right? So I've been able to get a few deals in negotiations. I've been able to work on a few development ideas and projects. The main thing that I haven't been doing is traveling. And I'm normally traveling every week somewhere, and I haven't traveled since March 9th. So that's been very interesting. But in terms of the isolation, I love being where I am. You know, there's trees everywhere. I'm in the woods, so I'm kind of okay. And I live upstate New York, so it's different than it would be in New York City. Things are a bit more spaced out. We've not had many cases. We haven't had 500 cases in the whole of Columbia County. So it's not bad. It's not bad up there, but still busy. There have been moments where you kind of say, okay, what do I do now? But I try to keep myself busy.
Excellent. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of, operations in general. One of the things we're going to talk about is Film Fest and the film festival circuit. Joffrey, of course, you've been running Contra Film Series, and you guys just went virtual last month, which was, I thought it was done really well that you guys did it on Footprint. You'll probably, I'm assuming, have to do that again until we're kind of back in the full swing. But sort of like, give me like a state of the union on festivals and film festival strategy in the age of COVID.
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, we're going virtual. We have no choice. All the theaters are shut down in New York City. As much as we'd love to be there and support filmmakers like John, who we've had the honor to host last year, took home the Best Documentary Award. It's been very hard. A lot of challenges, a lot of improvisation, figuring out what to do next, having conversations with a lot of people. Footprint was great. Thanks to you, we were able to connect with the great team over there, Footprint, and they're hosting us for the summer series in August. We have a lot of great films. There are a lot of great films that were submitted to us, and we want to give them a space and a place to showcase their work and network with other like-minded folks. So we're really happy to continue moving forward, doing it virtually, and hopefully be back in a theater in the near future.
And for you, John, like, what do you do now in terms of like film festival strategy? Like, are you looking, because I know you have a new feature that you've been working on, and I don't know where that is. We'll talk about that in a bit, but like, what did, I don't know, either you, Joffrey or John, like what advice do you give people in terms of, do you submit to things now? Do you look for virtual? Is virtual right for everybody? Like what works?
I think for me, there's going to be some people who feel like, well, it's no point me submitting because I'm not going, or they may not have the film festival. And film festivals to me are kind of learning the new way of getting on with it, right? So I feel like if you submit, they may end up doing a virtual film festival, but at least you're in the running and you still have a great chance, and probably a better chance than before, right? When everyone's making the travel plans and everything, people aren't sure, so people aren't submitting. So it may give you an even stronger chance to even be selected. I think what Jeff did was one of the best things. I watched some of the screenings, and I thought it was so well executed. And that's also interesting, that I can have my phone in my hand and I can be at a film festival, right? So I kind of liked that idea. So I don't think it stops things altogether. I think you just have to know that those film festivals are making their plans to accommodate the current climate.
Yeah, that's exactly what John said. I mean, it's very important. We're getting some amazing films. Look, we want to be back in a theater. I think every filmmaker wants to get their butts in the seats and see their film on a big screen. But due to the crisis that we have going on, we have to figure out new ways to showcase these films. And doing it virtually has been it's a new way. It's a new way of experiencing film. It's a new way of communicating with other fellow peers. But we're, like John said, there's more opportunities. We're able to showcase more films. So in August, we're expanding it to a 3-day event instead of a 1 or 2-day event as we've been doing the past few years. So we're getting a lot of great works, and we just want to continue to support filmmakers that are doing bold, original, and telling unique stories from perspectives from filmmakers of color, from filmmakers of the LGBTQ plus community, Latino community, Asians. We're really pushing the diversity this year, and there's just a lot of great talent out there from all over the place. I mean, it's just we're trying to showcase as many films as possible.
That brings me to kind of my next point. So in this era, and we don't know when theaters are going to be at full capacity, because right now they're talking about, okay, we can open up certain theaters are going to be at 25%. I don't know if it's worth it for a theater to open at 25%. Like, are they even going to be able to meet their minimum requirement to keep the lights on at that kind of percentage? Will they have to raise prices, et cetera, et cetera? So, what kind of, and we talked about this, John, when you were on the show, we talked about Infamous Future, and you were going back and forth, and all you could tell me was, I can't tell you about distribution, as I recall. So you were able to get distribution for that. Can you tell me where yet? Sure. Okay, so talk about that and kind of how you were able to do that, because I know it was a struggle for you, and I think you had done good in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing I would say is this is actually the first platform that I'm even mentioning this. What I wanted was a really good licensing deal, because then that still gives me ownership, which is great. But it allows it to have a home and a place. And my number one choice was the choice that I ended up getting, which was HBO. So HBO Max under the Warner Media was who I signed a deal with, and it will be out January of 2021, and it will be on there for quite a while. So I'm very happy about that, and they have been amazing to me with this whole deal. So
fantastic. Fantastic.
Thank you for announcing it here.
That's amazing.
This is the first.
So, John, I have to ask you, so for people who might be unfamiliar, just the film is The Infamous Future, but give us just like a little log line about what the film is. And that will also take us into our next topic, just so we know what we're talking about.
Sure. So The Infamous Future, the word infamous comes from a negative suggestion of something not so good. Whether it's you're looking at it as a rebel, or someone that's just not focused, or someone that's doing something bad. And in many ways, and very timely to this time of life, people of color, primarily black and brown boys, are depicted in this way in society. And I wanted to do a documentary to show the positive messages of black and brown boys by talking about a school which is Eagle Academy and what they're doing for these kids and inspiring their lives. And as we're looking at their lives, we're being inspired, right? So that pretty much sums up, it follows the life of one of the Latino kids and his mother and the CEO, David Banks. He's the president and CEO of Eagle Academy Foundation. And some of the teachers and principals, and just really giving you a background, but a front row seat to the daily lives and the inspiration that these teachers feel about these kids. And it takes you all the way to graduation. So it's something that I'm very, very proud of and very happy that we were able to go around the country and out of the country at many film festivals. Now it has a home.
Fantastic. It's a great movie. We talked about it. You were on my show, No Rest of the Weekend, and we talked about it on that show. We also reviewed it, I believe. But you can find out more about that on John's episode of No Rest of the Weekend podcast, where we kind of go more in depth about it. But John, it's a great movie, and it's incredibly topical today. It's I honestly don't think you could have hit the nail harder on the head. You know what I mean? Like it's incredibly poignant and topical now. Which leads us kind of to the next topic, which is kind of the main reason we're going to talk is, sort of the plight, the obligation, the state of stories of people of color in media, and kind of how that's evolving now, what kind of responsibilities filmmakers have. For instance, you have a new film coming up. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name of it.
Absolutely, you can say the name of it.
Okay, but we'll get into that in a second. But just kind of speak briefly. Like, you made this story for a particular reason, and I remember the schoolmaster said to you, "I've got the greatest story never told."
Right.
And it's poignant, but it's also a shame that a lot of these stories haven't been told.
Right.
So, do you feel now, especially in the wake of an era where people are protesting on the streets for Black Lives Matter, is it particularly poignant now to tell these stories, and how do you go about doing that?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Okay, so I would say to you, the first thing is, it's always a good time to tell your story. I don't think because of the protests or because of the current situations that should change what you've always felt, right? I think what it can do is help those who may not have listened to start listening, right? And so I also think that if you go into a car, you can't just, and I'm talking a car that has a key, you've got to turn the key like 2-3 times, right? Before you hear the engine rev and then it actually starts, right? I'm not necessarily saying or thinking that we are all the way turned, that the car is running and so now we can all go. I think that we might be clicking, right? And I think in that clicking, people are paying attention now to what has been the narrative for a long time. So for me, I told some friends the other day, it's not so much that in the past 4 times that I've been in my car, 2 out of those 4 times I've been followed by the police. They've turned around and come behind me. It's more about the fact that I have to let go of the feeling when they're gone, so that wherever I'm going, I don't bring any frustration into that environment, right? So that I can pretty much just try to, when everyone's saying, "Hi, how are you?" I'm not saying, "You won't believe what just happened to me," or I'm not frustrated with anyone, or I'm isolating myself. I want to try to be present, so I have to diffuse that. And if that happens to you several times a week or several times a month or several times a year or every time you're in certain environments, it's not just about police. It's about when you walk into a store and you feel paranoid as if someone's watching you and things of that nature. These are all the things that are just systemic in and around the society of our cultures, right? And that's where we've got to pay attention, right? So back to telling stories, it's important to tell the stories because these are some of the things that are happening that people aren't aware of, right? So yes, nationwide, you had the perfect storm. The perfect storm was COVID-19. Now, I guarantee you, if the situation with George Floyd happened when there was no COVID-19, we probably wouldn't be hearing it to this magnitude because people would be so busy, so into what they're doing in their day, traveling, getting on planes, and all of those things. The world was still, all right? The world had nowhere to go. And in that pivotal time, we all had to pay attention. Whether you were on your phone, it would come up. Whether you were on your tablet, it would come up. Whether you turned on the television, it would come up. Whether you were listening to the radio, it was coming up everywhere you were. So that's why these stories are important. It's just now they're realizing, and when I say they, I mean primarily people who may not have been in those situations, white people, are paying more attention, which is good, to these are the stories we've been trying to tell you, right? These situations with the police is what we've been talking about for decades. Because it's not even just about the police, it's also about the unions, it's also about politics, but it's also about control, not just with law enforcement. It's about in our environments where we live, and we've got to understand what the word equality means, right? And be open to giving things up which you may have had control over, because that's not equality if you're in control and I'm trying to do the same thing, but I can't get there, all right? So we have to tell these stories. So for me, I want to be a part of telling stories that celebrates my race, but also talks about the challenges and the frustrations of my race. That's not the only thing that I do, but it's something that's important to me in this industry.
That's great. I just want to chime in there. That's really great. It's also sad because what you just talked about just happened to me today. I was driving in a very affluent neighborhood in downtown Brooklyn.
Yes.
Exactly what you just said. Car with police, NYPD car was double parked. I just happened to make the turn. I was like looking for the street. I didn't know where I was, but it was a very affluent neighborhood near the Park Slope area. I drive right past it slowly, watching my way, paranoid as, someone like me would be. Past it, and the cop decided to follow me. And I'm just there, I'm like driving, okay, get to the stop sign, stop, put the sign, the blinker, turn, follows me right behind me, slowly. I just gotta keep my cool,
Exactly.
But it's, you're wondering why. Like it happens all the time. You don't hear about these stories, and that's exactly. Just one of many.
Right. And that's a part of it. So I have to have my own therapy to get rid of that feeling. And sometimes it can sieve into other areas of my day or situations. And I may not even remember that that's where it started, right? Because my whole day has gone by, or the night has gone by, or the following morning I don't feel inspired and motivated. And I'm not remembering that, oh, yeah, that happened last night. I need to get that out of myself.
Yeah.
My other question would be, as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, you talk about not bringing that sort of energy into a room, kind of thing. But how do you come off in a story? How do you tell a story without it just being an anger monologue, without it being some kind of a lecture, or because regardless of what we think we are, we're entertainers. Like we make entertainment for people. And what we make has to be entertaining on some level. So how do you make it so it's not an eat your vegetables, it's good for you kind of movie, and B, how do you kind of make it palatable so that the message can get across to people who don't look like you?
So there's two parts to that, right? there is what you hear and then there's what you understand, right? So I'm speaking to you and you can hear me, right? And as you can hear me, that could be as far as it goes. The part that really resonates is you understanding what I'm saying, right? That's when it has impact. So you can make a movie, but make sure it's the truth, all right? If it is the truth, you will either hear me or have some understanding to what I'm saying, okay? Have you ever tried to tell someone, no, if you do this and then that, that's how you get that? And they are looking at you like, okay, I'm trying to understand what you're saying, but I don't get it, right? And so you then have to understand, knowing that they do not understand, I may just have to leave it as this is what it is, okay? And maybe in time they'll get it, maybe further down the line, right? So I genuinely feel like you have to just tell the story and be authentic, be truthful about it. I don't think it's relevant to amp up any sensationalism to the truth. The truth will stand on its own, right? So you can try to make it Hollywood and all of those things, but as long as it's the truth, it should come through, and people will learn to understand that or come to understand it. So I think that kind of, you're going to have people just like in this current situation. A lot of people don't understand a lot of things to do with racism. They don't understand about Confederate flags. They don't understand about control. They don't see that there are inequalities in certain neighborhoods, low income issues, COVID happening to Latinos and Blacks more than it is Caucasians, and why, right? They don't understand that, and they don't think that that's possible because they live somewhere else and they don't see it there, right? So I think part of it is just tell your story, and hopefully, you know, someone will get it, and as they get it, maybe they'll share it, and that's how we help each other. You know, it's not just about me trying to say, you need to understand what I'm saying. It's also about me saying, okay, you may not get this now, but here is something that happened to someone I know, or here is how we feel, right?
Yeah, you know, one of the things I think about when I think about this topic, and it does strike me very personally. You know, I don't get pulled over by the cops because I don't look like you guys. You know, but friends of mine do. You know, and it hurts me because I feel like there's barriers that we're just not going to get over. You know, 2 or 3 weeks of protests is not going to erase generations. You know, and that's, I mean, it's a bitter pill to swallow. And, you know, what you're talking about, and like being patient with people, and, you know, I can't believe the restraint of people, you know, like, and, you know, when I see stuff like this, it really, I get emotional about it, because it's like, I know people this has happened to. This happened to my friends. This, you know, when the church in South Carolina got shot up, I know people who went there, you know, like that could have been them. And when you see this stuff, it's like, I don't know. I think it's great that it's coming out, but it's also, you know, the past few years have been a huge awakening, not just for America, but for the world. Now, John, you're not from here, unless you do a great British accent. So I would assume that this was a problem in the UK as well, you know.
Yes, it is. It has a slightly different face, but it's, you know, so funnily enough, when I am stopped by a policeman here, they almost don't know how to react when they hear me speak. So it almost makes them step back, and then they say, oh, you're okay. Okay. And that just seems to be my ticket, as it were. But in the UK, there's more of a pretense about racism. Most white people don't feel that there is racism in England. When I say that, I'm talking in terms of from the political side, from the middle to upper class side. you would ask any of them, they would say, oh no, I don't think there's much of that. But again, it's what you're surrounded by. So it's very easy to assume something and you're not exposed to people who are, disenfranchised, who are in challenging neighborhoods, who are not getting opportunities. There's less than 1% in entertainment of Black people and Latinos in the UK, right? And, there's a great article that CNN came out with this morning. It is phenomenal. It describes everything about what's happening in England and racism better than I've ever seen. They literally hit the nail on the head with they did all kinds of tests with thousands of people, and they asked them similar questions, people from different backgrounds, but it's real. But the violence is not as drastic as America. I will say that when it comes to police injustice, it's no way near as intense as it is in this country.
Well, you don't have, one thing you don't have in the UK is you don't have cowboy culture. You don't have, guy with the 6-shooter lawman that's, yeah. and that, I think that's a lot of what makes up here. I also think it's how, like, particularly police, how they are sort of lionized in media, and how, we have hero cops, and all the hero cops are, shooting machine guns. It's like Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon, or, these images that we have. And it's on some level, we're to blame. The media is to blame. The movie makers are to blame for this. There's a whole host of other topics I could get into, but this is not that kind of show. But I would say, in terms of sticking with media, one thing I loved about your film, about Infamous Future, is it showed a positive side of things. Mm-hmm. A positive side of the hood, and a realism of it that said, hey, the government looks at Brownsville, they look at these different neighborhoods to determine how many walls and bars to put on prisons.
Right.
And how do you stack up against that? Like, already, that every kid has got, 2 strikes against them from the second they're born. And what I said, I think the last time we saw each other, I said to you, the only shame about Infamous Future, about that school, is that it has to exist in the first place.
Yeah.
That they need to have a special
Absolutely.
place,
But I think it's critical. I think it is critical because the makeup of things in this country, and, yes, we are aware that most, particularly Black people in America, come from the ancestry of slavery, okay? So there's that weight to deal with, okay? But then you've got the other situations where there's so much injustice to the Latino community, all right? I mean, you're seeing it from month to month to year, trying to create divides, right? When, let's be clear, this wasn't a white country, okay? It became a white country at the sweat, blood, and tears and death of Native Americans and many others. So we're not looking at life even with any conviction when these things are put in place to really have more of a civilized nation and a place to live, right? So you've then got to compensate. So how do you compensate? Tell some good stories when everything you're hearing in the news is bad. Tell some real stories when it's fabricated that it's only white people that might tell these stories. I think it's important to tell good stories with white and Black people. I think it's good to tell good stories with white and Asian and Latino people. We've got to make sure that we are conscious of something I did in an article the other day. I called it, we are, of course, in the United States. And if you understand the word that's united, that means all of us together, right? And so we have a responsibility in our consciousness to making sure that we are remaining united, especially when it's for the good and for the greater good of everyone.
I can't say it better than that, my friend. And we can talk more about this. Definitely. I do want to move on to the next thing, because I want to talk about your new project.
Sure.
And this is why I asked you to say, if I could say the title, because
the title, The Sleeping Negro.
Yes. So Now, this is not a documentary, right? This is a
No, this
feature
is a
narrative.
feature film by the amazing writer, director, and actor Skinner Myers, who's won many awards for other shorts, but this is his first feature. He won the Holly Shorts Award and March Washington Film Festival and several others for Frank Embry. And so he actually called me, well, he actually sent me a text last year to get some advice. And I was asking, what is it for? And he said, he wants to put out something about a new film that he wants to do. And I said, what's the film? He said, it's called The Sleepless Libra. He said, I just want to do the film. So I said, send me the script. He sent it to me and I loved it and said, I'm going to join you. I'm going to come in and let's make this film. So we finished the film at the beginning of the year, literally just before everything shut down. So we spent the past 4 or 5 months editing, and the film was just completed within the past few days.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah. Lots of visual effects, coloring, all the rest of it, sound design, but we're happy.
You're lucky. You got it in right under the wire, man.
Yeah.
Believe me, I could not believe we literally filmed the last scene like a few days before the complete shutdown, and this was in California.
All right, so I'm going to ask. We've got a couple of people in the chat. I just want to see if anyone has any questions at the moment. Somebody wants to message me or raise their hand. Doesn't look like we have anything so far. Move on to the next thing. Joffrey, you have a new WebFest coming up. Give us the lowdown on that, if you would.
This Wednesday, yeah, we have our second year of the World WebFest Mania, one of our subset of the Katra film series that we've been organized to showcase web content, short form content that we're doing. We're doing it virtually again as well on Footprint channel. So be sure to check it out on this Wednesday, June 24th at 7 p.m. We have some great films. Kaylin Kless, our operations manager, is going to be moderating the Q&A. Should be a great time. Tune in. It's free. And if people want to support the festival, they're more than welcome to, drop a few dollars. But otherwise, just join us, share it, enjoy some good quality content. And John, I can't wait to see your films in a movie theater again. We had so much fun last year watching film. Great conversation.
Absolutely.
Can't wait to get back.
No, I'm very much in support of you, Jeff. You do great work. I thought switching from Brooklyn Point to virtual, that's probably the most classiest transition I've seen for a film festival. I thought it was very good indeed. I was very impressed. So definitely I will continue to support you and see what's going on and check things out on Wednesday. I see there's a question there. Someone wanted to ask a question.
Go ahead, John.
We have a question here. Wanted to ask John about the chances of an American TV writer breaking into UK TV, and what are his thoughts on that? Have you worked in UK TV, John?
I've been offered to be a producer on a couple of projects. It's not difficult. The way that I would advise you is literally the same platform that you have here. So there are some really good British film festivals. Firstly, I think who did the question come from? Was that from Jar? Hi, how are you? Okay, hi. So so I would say to you, Jar, there are you with Film Freeway? Are you a member of Film Freeway yet?
I am. I did join.
Good. So you can navigate your search to the European film festivals, right? And some of those film festivals are the best in the world. Berlin does a great one. London has from documentaries to short films, feature films, but they're really, really good film festivals. And those producers and writers are so keen to work with American producers and writers. and directors, they're constantly looking to partner. And so I would definitely say to you, that's one way. Another way is looking at some of the content on film festivals that are happening here, because many of them have British short films and feature films, and those people are coming over here, right? So you literally have to be strategic about wanting to get with some people and do your background work, right? What is your background and what are you hoping to do?
Well, I started in publishing. So I'm originally a novelist, but I love television. So I write mostly 1-hour drama and 30-minute dramedies.
Okay.
I'm also writing a film. I'm trying to write a film about an RAF soldier. My dad was in the RAF in World War II. So I'm trying to do that, and a feature based on my novel. So mostly drama.
Okay. And so what is it that, what's making you intrigued about British film and television?
Well, I love UK television, and I know that there's only one writer usually that writes the entire show over there, but I'm trying to cast a wide net, and I'm trying to see, I have just open to different opportunities. I have family in the UK. I lived in France for almost 10 years. So I'm open to sort of where the opportunity is. And so I was just wondering, because I know that there's a lot of British managers sort of setting up shop here. So I just wanted to know how open it was to American writers. Okay.
So what were the last 2 or 3 film festivals that you went to?
I went to the Athena. I didn't do anything Europe-based. I went to the Athena Film Festival. Last year, I went to the Tribeca Film Festival. Okay. So those are the 2 film festivals I did.
Okay. Have you ever been to Bronze Lens Film Festival?
No.
Have you heard of it?
No.
Okay. I'm going to tell you one of my favorite things to do in a calendar year is go to Bronze Lens, right? And here is why. As a woman of color, you will meet the creme de la creme at Bronze Lens, okay? I am a producer on a TV series that's coming up next year. I have produced 2 other feature films, one with Samuel Goldwyn, another with Code Black Entertainment. All of that happened when I saw the director, who I actually knew but hadn't seen him for years. I saw him at Bronze Lens in 2016. And so we started talking, and that became the next 2 or 3 projects that I worked on, right? Then I go back to Bronze Lens, and that's where I met Warner Media, who signed The Infamous Future, my documentary. Right. At Bronze Lens, there are people from Europe there. There are people from production companies from Europe at Bronze Lens, as there are certain programs that Europe has where they partner with Bronze Lens to bring them over. And they get to talk about their projects, and they get to meet people. So I've met people from London at Bronze Lens in Atlanta, right? Who wanted to partner and talk about different projects, etc. But what's really good is you will feel the empowerment. That was where that was where Queen Sugar was launched, okay? It's Ava DuVernay's favorite film festival, and that's where she really kind of blew up, right? That's where Issa Rae started with Insecure. It's HBO and many other network funded film festival. So you're going to meet everyone in the industry, and it's as easy as pie. Sorry if I'm talking too long, guys. It's as easy as pie to just walk up to Roni Reed, the best and biggest Black casting director that we have for the last 30 plus years. And you'll see, legendary people like David Oyelowo, who just did his film there, but he's available to have a conversation with you. So it's very unassuming. I met Matthew Cherry, who you just saw, who won the last short animation for the Oscars this year.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great place for you to go. So I strongly advise you to go to Bronze Lens, make it on your list. If they're not doing it in person and they're doing it virtually, still go. It'll make a difference.
All right. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Sorry about that, Jason.
No worries, guys. I'm going to wrap up. But before I let you go, where can we find, Joffrey, where can we find you and Katra on the web? Joffrey, you're muted. Unmute your mic.
You're muted.
There we go.
There you go.
KatraFilmSeries.com and Film Freeway. We're up there. We're accepting submissions for next year now, where we plan to be back at the Alamo Drafthouse Theater. So definitely submit your works. We're looking for new features, shorts, screenplays, web series.
And it looks like we lost Joffrey. And John, where can we find you and know more about your work on the web?
To know more about, you can go to, for regarding The Infamous Future, it's at The Infamous Future on Instagram, TIF Docu on Twitter. I'm at JC in Time, that's my personal, but it also will have everything about me. And just keep watching this space. There'll be an announcement with HBO soon for the documentary and then the other works that I have coming up. Stay tuned.
Do you have word on the feature yet as to, you said you just wrapped it. I don't know if you have.
Literally just looked at it within the last 2 days. So we're all talking now and planning. We have a few options, which is great. So that's going well. And I also have the musical, Sideways the Musical, which is doing great. We've signed on some great people. It's being directed by Kathleen Marshall. She's a 5-time Tony Award-winning director. We also have Julian Reeve, who is the music supervisor for Hamilton. But we're doing quite well with a few projects right now. So I'm leading that production now. So I have my hands full.
Congratulations. So I'm going to wrap up. Thanks so much, guys, for joining me. And thanks for asking questions and so forth. We'll rebroadcast this, I think, at some point, Joffrey, and maybe I'll do a version of it on my show on No Rest for the Weekend. I'll plug myself real quick.
Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you, John.
Pleasure.
And you guys rock.
No, this was great, man. Thanks. We'll do this again sometime.
Such incredible talent as John to
thank you, man.
Thank you.
Anytime. And stay focused, John. That's your thing. Do your thing, okay?
I will.
All right. So I will say,
all right.
I'll say for the Katra Film Series Alumni Spotlight, I'm Jason Godby. You can catch me on the No Rest for the Weekend podcast, norestfortheweekendpodcast.com, and look for Katra on Facebook. And you can also watch Joffrey's episode on the show. He's actually you've been on a couple of times.
2 times.
And then we've also covered Katra, so you can kind of see what it's like. And of course, John was on the show as well. Thank you so much, guys, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you,
guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Take care.
Take care.